Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming back to yet another episode of The Gloving Paradigm. I am your host, Peter, aka LPD8 Dubuque, and this week I'm going to be touching up on a hot topic in the community. Well, it really depends on where you sit on in terms of this topic because some people don't really care, some people care a lot. You know, it all depends on where you fall in that spectrum. But the subject matter I'm going to be covering this week is doubles. Double light shows, double performances, and what it all entails, and wanting to bring something to the surface where we can actually have a discussion on trying to alleviate the awkwardness and the total just awkwardness of this kind of paradigm. So first things first, let's just go on and get into this episode. And the first thing I'm going to talk about is, what is a double? A double is basically just a light show, whether it's impromptu or coordinated, with two people. Okay, if you add more people, it's a triple or a quadruple or quintuple, so on and so forth. I don't really think I need to use all these math terms with you guys right now, but so that's basically what a double is. It's just two people giving a light show to one person or a small group of people. It really depends on the viewing audience, So with that being said, there's one thing of note I do want to talk about, and that is tag teams. There is a difference between tag teams and doubles, and it's pretty self-explanatory. A double is two people doing it at the same time, as a tag team is when one person's going, and after a little while, the other person will take over and switch out, and that person do their show as well. So definitely wanted to explain that there is a major difference between those two, and trying not to get them confused. And of course, you have 2-man tag team, 3-man tag team that you can probably call like a triple threat, 4-person tag team where it could be like a free-for-all if you want to call it that. Terms are terms, and that's what it is. So one of the major things I do want to talk about when it comes to doubles is the pros and cons to this format of gloving. And yes, I do consider this a format because it does take on different aspects that a single person light show doesn't always have. So the first thing I definitely want to talk about is how it gives more dynamics available for you to utilize, not only for you as one person, but to work with another person and create something more unique. And so the main reason why I want to say this is because when you add an additional person, things take on a different shape. The grid, it becomes much more bigger. As much as some people might disagree with me on that, it does get bigger, because not only do you have the grid, centered on the person below, but you also have the person on top who's also has their own form of grid points and stuff like that. So the grid pretty much gets bigger and more in depth that way. And I know some people might disagree with me on that, but that's how I've always looked at it. It makes everything bigger in terms, or you have to take into account things being bigger in terms of space. With the spatial awareness as well. And of course, like I was saying earlier, it's a completely different format of gloving, and the main reason is because you're working with somebody else. Whether it's a choreographed piece or an impromptu double light show, which I'm not calling it a random double. I will explain why. But an impromptu double or a coordinated double, it's just a completely different format of gloving, because you're not. It's not just you to one person, it's two people to one person, or multiple people depending on your audience. But with that being said, it is a different format. You have to examine how you're working with this. Like, the best way I can describe a double being as a format is like in Magic the Gathering, we have a format called Two-Headed Giant, which, if you guys don't play Magic, I'll try to make this very simple, but it's basically a 2-on-2 match between 4 people. You have 2 people on each team. You don't share a deck, but you do share a life total, and you share your turn. So, like, for example, if the start of the turn is on tap, you both untap at the same time. You both take your upkeep at the same time. You draw at the same time. You don't necessarily cast spells at the same time, but you have to make sure you're staying in the same phase as each other before moving forward. Stuff like that. That's how I look at doubles. Is like Two-Headed Giant in Magic. It's where you're literally coordinating with somebody, you're planning things out, and you're making your game plan from there. That's what doubles are to me. Now, triples you can do the same way. I don't recall if there's actual official format in Magic the Gathering that has triples. I know Arch Enemy is a 3 versus 1 type format thing, so you could try to tie that together, I guess. I'm not entirely sure. Again, I'm kind of grasping at straws here to try to help help people understand where I'm coming from on some stuff, you know. So that's why I always look at, you know, doubles, or anytime you add an additional person beyond just a single person in a light show, it becomes a different format, you know, and you have to look at it in that sense. You know, and of course, lastly, when it comes to pros, is that it opens opportunities to learn. It gives you an opportunity to not only learn new tricks from the person you're doing a double with, but it's also teaching you how to work and cooperate and coordinate with somebody, whether it's impromptu or not. It's just a new avenue of learning something, and a lot of the times you're going to learn something that you know, maybe it's something you've been working on for a very long time and you still haven't gotten quite the grasp of it, and you do an impromptu double with somebody, and through the show you've learned to figure it out through the other person. You know, that's what I love about doubles. It's that whole social aspect where it gives you that opportunity to learn from other people. And not only that, but it's teaching you adaptability, where you're able to adapt to play styles and things like that, and being able to work with it. Now, here are the cons that tend to happen with a lot of people, and two of them is more of the lack thereof, not it's the problem, it's more of the lack thereof being the problem, you know. And one of them is just something that we kind of have to deal with. It's what I would call the variance of gloving, but I'll get into that in a little bit. So the first thing is communication. Again, the lack thereof is a big problem, because when you're doing an impromptu double, yeah, you're doing it off the cuff, which is very much in the spirit of gloving, but the communication that needs to be happening between you and your gloving partner, as I will refer to it, is, you know, whether you're going to go into some tech or you want to do more flow and stuff, and they're trying to do something completely different, you know, trying to actually like talk and coordinate what you guys are doing is going to be a great help for you, because not only that, is helping you with your communication skills and allowing you to actually learn to read each other and be able to work off of each other and what you guys are doing. You know, there's multiple ways of going about it, but I strongly suggest trying to communicate as much as possible when it comes to that. Even if you have to do communication before you do the show, that's totally fine. You know, that's absolutely acceptable, because it gives you an opportunity to actually be like, okay, so this is what I kind of have planned in mind, and what do you like to do and stuff like that. The other thing that tends to happen, which is a major lack of, is just cooperation. A lot of people will talk about how a lot of doubles, somebody will just start doing their own thing and the other person can't really work off of what they're doing, you know, and there's no level of cooperation between the two performers. And I totally get it. It's, you know, to some people, they just don't know what they're doing when it comes to a double. I will certainly tell you myself, I am not very experienced with doubles. I enjoy doubles and what they offer. It's, you know, it's just something I have never really had a huge opportunity to do, you know, and so I would like to see doubles actually really take on a form of its own, because it really kind of does, you know what I mean? It's a different dynamic in terms of a single player show, as I'll refer to it. So you have the lack of communication and lack of cooperation that we do now definitely need to work on, and, you know, just trying to be as civil as possible when you're discussing these things are really going to help. Now, the last thing that tends to be an issue when it comes to impromptu doubles especially is the experience scales. Okay, so like I said, I'm just using this as an example. I'm trying to kind of convey what I'm talking about here. But somebody like me who's been doing this for 9 years now, going on to 10 in February, you know, I just know how to do things much more naturally. And if you try to get me an impromptu double with somebody who's only been doing it for a month, there's going to be a lot of syntactical type errors happening between us. You know, I can try to do some king tutting, and if that person doesn't know how to do king tutting, it's kind of going to start falling flat on his face. Is that an opportunity for that person to just spontaneously try king tutting out and see if something happens? Yes, I would definitely encourage that. I always like the idea of people pushing themselves and making themselves try new things that they don't feel comfortable doing, because even if you do it bad, you at least attempt it, and, you know, it kind of breaks the anxiety problem that some people have when they try new concepts and stuff like that. So you know, again, that, you know, the experience skills really lends into the opportunities to learn, and that's what I really, really enjoy. You know, those are your pros and cons, and that tends to be the most common things I've seen people talk about, and I totally get it, because sometimes, you know, it's just two different completely play styles trying to work together. Sometimes it just doesn't work, you know what I mean? It's just, It's not possible. Like, again, using Magic as an example, you can't put a control deck and an aggro deck together and expect it to work. Like, it's just not gonna work. It's two completely different philosophies of playing Magic, you know. So, but yeah, so we're gonna move on and talk about the positions that a double takes on. So there are two positions that I have dubbed the name the Crow's Nest and the Bunker. And if you're wondering why I'm calling these terms, then you'll understand very quickly. So first things first, we're going to cover the Crow's Nest, which is the person who's on top or above. And I'm pretty sure you already now know why I went with the Crow's Nest term. You know, they're the person who stands in the back. They're the ones who are, you know, they're at the higher portion of the playing field type deal, or the grid point. I don't know what words you want to use at this point, but I'm just going to say playing field, where, you know, when you're doing your performance where your hands are moving all over the place, that's the playing field. So they're going to be up at the upper part of that. What I tend to notice when it comes to this position is they tend to follow the person who's below, you know, who's in the bunker, essentially. You know, does that mean that they can't lead? No, you can definitely lead from being in the Crow's Nest. You can definitely do it that way. I just tend to see a very common trend of people who are in the Crow's Nest tending to be the follower of the show rather than being the leader. I'm not saying that you can't be the leader as in the Crow's Nest. I just haven't seen a lot of people do it that way. So it's just one of those things I feel like it's just naturally fitting into that role. You know, but I'm always the person who advocates trying to break the mold and really push the envelope and try to break it, you know what I mean? So one thing I also tend to notice is that the person in the Crow's Nest is always usually just occupying the background, which, you know, another thing that I love about doubles is that it really expands, you know, the distances of the foreground, the midground, and the background. You know, you really actually get that sense of scaling of depth when it comes to doubles, and that's what I really enjoy, because it's making me see things in new ways and actually having to perceive things in differently, and that's what I really like. You know, so they do tend to occupy the background. Yes, they do come up into the foreground from time to time, and it's always a good way to shake up the status quo of the show. You know, the midground, I was starting to say, when it comes to a double, is occupied by both. You know, it tends where they tend to meet, and that's when they get a lot of crazy stuff going on. You know, but I'm not saying that you know, being the person in the Crow's Nest, that you have to stay in the background. Like, no, like if you are seeing opportunities where you can actually move your hands up into the foreground, by all means go for it, because it's going to be a nice little surprise factor for your viewer, especially if they're not expecting it, you know. So that's something you definitely want to keep in mind when you're in the Crow's Nest position, is that, you know, you might be the one following, but if you're somebody who can lead, that's fine too. I will certainly say it depends, you know, if you're the person who likes to lead, it really depends on where you are in the format, you know, because as I tend to see people who are in the bunker position being the one who's leading, I've seen people in the Crow's Nest position leading as well. And of course, you can always change it up, especially if you work really well with the person you're doing a double with. You know, you can always change it up, and that's something that's going to expound your show much farther than most people would actually give credit to. You know, so definitely keep that in mind. Now, let's go ahead and cover the bunker position, which, you know, is the bottom person. And again, I'm pretty sure you guys already figured out why I went with these terms. And, you know, they're the person who's pretty much just, you know, in the regular gloving position, and then, you know, have somebody standing behind them, basically, type deal. And they're the ones who tend, from what I've seen, they're the ones they tend to lead. And I totally understand why, because they're in the foreground, they're going to be the main focus. You know, so they're going to be the one who tends to direct where the show is going, and I totally understand why it tends to be that way. You know, it's just something that kind of naturally falls into place. They do tend to lead a lot, but they can also follow, you know, and again, you can always change it up. If you're able to change up the positions of who's leading and who's following during your show and do it smoothly, then it's really going to expand your, you know, it's going to make your show that much more memorable and much more, you know, impactful on the viewer. And of course, like I said, they occupy the foreground mostly. They can also go into midground. I've seen people who were in the bunker position occupy the background a little bit, while the Crow's Nest person is occupying the foreground. You know, being able to switch from all these different points in terms of the grid or the playing field or whatever, you know, that's what's really going to make your double show much more memorable and much more impactful, is because you're utilizing your spatial awareness. And not only that, but you're also having your viewer look at spatial awareness in a different context altogether. You know, as a single show, you know, you kind of just keep it within the realm of their face, but you know, with doubles, you know, you're making them kind of like sit back a little bit more and actually look at more of the space that's being occupied. So that's just something I definitely want to let you guys know to keep in mind. It's something to always take into consideration. I'm not, you know, when it comes to all these suggestions and considerations, I tell you guys, it's not like you have to like work on it in a science and perfect it. Like, it's just something that you can keep in mind to like maybe solve a problem you might be having. You know, that's just how I'm going about it. Okay, so let's get into what people would like to call the random double problem. So what is a random double? Oh man, I can't believe I'm actually covering this part, but it should be fun. A random double basically is when one Glover joins in on another Glover's light show without permission. Okay, it's pretty much the brutalistly honest way I'm going to have to just rip the band-aid off for you guys. I can certainly tell you I've experienced this. I've experienced somebody actually coming up behind me while I'm giving a light show and start joining in, and as a lot of my loyal listeners know that I'm prior military, so, you know, tendencies of military training tend to kick in for me. And let's just say I didn't hurt the person, I didn't do any damage to this person, but let's just say it made me immediately stop the show and freak out a little bit, because it was just, you know, okay, so let me kind of paint the picture. So if you're in my position, you're just sitting there giving a light show, you're just having a good time and stuff, you're really into the zone. Then all of a sudden you see other hands come up around you and almost feel like they're gonna like grab you, like hug you type deal. Yeah, I kind of freaked out and just stopped. I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. You know, like, you know, I just kind of like, whoa, what's happening? That's whoa. You know, it's kind of just a matter of personal space for me. You know, I don't like unexpected things like that happening. And I'm not saying that the person is a bad person for doing that. It's just, you know, I'm really was not used to people just randomly coming and do like, you know, doubles with me like that. Like, from my experience, especially in the early days in 2010, 2011, I was always had people wait until I was done with the show and then come up and ask me, you know, hey, how about we try to do a double together, you know, and went from there, you know. So the that being my first time experiencing the random double conundrum, that was kind of startling, I will certainly say. So that's one of the things about a random double problem that a lot of people have, is just, you know, to a lot of people you're just kind of invading personal space, you know, especially if you did not ask any permission. And so like, I understand, like, if you're really feeling the other Glover's play style and how they glove and all that stuff, I totally get it. Like, you totally want to get in on that and try to create something really cool. But the big issue with that is, you know, just the matter of personal propriety. You know, you just gotta be civil when it comes to stuff like that. So, you know, it's just a matter of personal boundaries, and some people just don't like doubles. Some people just don't like doing doubles, and I totally get it. Like, a lot of people say the reason why they don't like doing doubles is because they just suck at it. Well, when you first started doing gloving, you weren't the greatest one of them all, you know. I'm just saying, like, you had to work on your craft in gloving in general to get to where you are. So, you know, saying that you don't like doing doubles because you just suck at it, it's just like, well, you do got to put in the same time and effort you put into gloving as it is to do gloving as it is, you know. So why not, like, just try out, you know, doubles? And if it's just something you're just not personally into, that's totally fine too. Like, that's the thing that I like about gloving, is that, you know, we have multiple different formats of gloving that you can look into, just like how Magic has different formats of playing the game. You know, that's what I like about gloving so much, is because it has so many different avenues you can go about it and find people who are the like-minded category as you know. So don't, I will certainly say, do not feel bad if someone just tells you, hey, I just don't like doing doubles. It's not you, it's me type deal. Don't take it personally. Please don't take it personally. You know, it's not you. It's just, you know, people have their preferences, and that's just how it is. And I totally get from other people's position where they just don't like doubles because it's just, you know, maybe something is just not carved out well enough. You know, I've seen plenty of doubles that were, I've seen plenty of them that were like, okay, that's pretty good. And I see some ones that were like, okay, yeah, that was really good. And there's a few that were like pure freaking gold. You know, just the magical Christmas land of a double type deal. You know, so that's just something I always want to kind of put out there. And one major thing I definitely want to point out, because I've seen this happen, is that it's not always only the other Glover that doesn't like doing the doubles. Okay, I've met plenty of people who are just huge enthusiasts of the craft, but never, have no point or no intention of getting into the art. They just don't like doubles. They just don't like how it goes. And I can totally understand when you have a lot of the communication problems or cooperation problems and stuff like that, where you're just not working together to, provide a show for the person. Some people just don't like it, and that's just, as unfortunate as it is, it's just something we kind of have to roll with it, To offer possible solutions to this problem, which is kind of self-explanatory. I know so many people have already said it a bunch of times, but I'm going to reiterate it here. First of all, asking permission is always going to be the best way, and the worst thing that's ever going to happen is them telling you no. And it's not the end of the world if they tell you no. It's just, you're going to find somebody. If you just keep going and keep trying, you're going to find somebody who's going to be willing to do it, and, you go from there. One of the things I will certainly say when it comes to asking permission, I know a lot of people say that, you can ask somebody while they're giving a show. I tend to find that a bit rude. The main reason to me is that you're pulling their focus away from their viewer. I will certainly say from my experience, when people have done that, I've actually accidentally hit people in the face while giving a light show. Great. Luckily, it was only grazing. It was not a full-on slap or anything like that. But still, at that time when that did happen, I would feel extremely, extremely bad because my focus was pulled away. So I would always admonish people, just wait until the person's done giving a light show. Hopefully you can get to them in time before somebody, steals them away and gets another light show from them. Hopefully people are actually respectful and give people like a good 5-minute break before next show. We are performers. We do need breaks. We're only human beings. We're not robots. So that's all I'll ask of you guys. Just wait until the person's done before you try to ask them to do a double with you and stuff like that. Especially when it comes to impromptu doubles. Random doubles just have a negative connotation to it now, kind of like how Mary Sue has a negative connotation to it as a term in literary writing. That's just one major thing I definitely want to say is just, be respectful and just wait until the person's done doing. Don't pull their focus away from what they're doing with their viewer, because you're kind of ruining, not necessarily ruining the show, but you're hampering the show for the viewer, and that kind of, I feel like they get cheated out. You know what I mean? That's just me. So if you're actually able to talk to somebody who's willing to actually do a random, an impromptu double with you, I would certainly say just discussing simple cues, ideas to help. A good example for me is like something that me and my younger brother did once is that I was the person in the crow's nest, and I stuck my arms out of view of the viewer and by their heads, and he kind of realized what I was kind of going for, because I was kind of trying to tell him. I was like, hey, put your hands together and kind of do the back and forth out of view thing. And then so he started doing that, and then once he actually got both hands on both sides of the viewer's heads, then he moved his right hand over to his left hand, but then my hand started to follow, and then all of a sudden it was just boom, 1 2 3 4, 1 2 3 4, back and forth, and that really shocked our viewer, because he was not expecting that. And so it's having some like simple cues like that help kind of incorporate both you and the other person into the show equally is something that I definitely would suggest you do. And finally, one easy way to help you gauge whether or not your guys' play styles are compatible with each other is just do a simple trade. Now, I'm not saying that you have to do a trade where you're showing everything in your arsenal and everything that you know. Just kind of give them a quick sampling of everything that you know, especially if you can show that your transitions are really good. But just kind of like show your palette through a short show. You don't need to go into like a 5-minute show for them to understand like, okay, this is how he plays and all that stuff. Like, no, so trades are always going to be a way to help you figure out if you're actually going to be compatible or not. If you're not compatible but you're able to adapt, that's always a great example as well. It's just trying to adapt to it. So those are my suggestions of solutions. Biggest one is just asking permission after the person is done giving a show. Okay, I don't like this whole idea that people would try to interrupt somebody and pull their focus away from what they're doing in order to ask them the questions. There's a time and place for everything, and if the question is important enough, it can wait. That's just my personal philosophy, that if it's important enough, it can wait. So that's pretty much it for my episode. And I will just like to say thank you so much for everybody who's been listening onto the show. I actually checked my count earlier today, and I believe I'm up to 182 on likes. So we're only 18 away from the 200 Ask Me Anything, thingy. So definitely spread the word and try to get that number up to 200 so we can have that again, because that was really, really fun and I want to do it again. But yes, you have various outlets that you can hit me up at, which, one of them is my Facebook page, which is aptly named The Gloving Paradigm. You can also hit me up at my email, which is muttonchopguy@gmail.com. I'm also on Reddit under the username muttonchopguy if you want to follow me there. That's totally fine. And of course, I do have a Discord server, which the link to that will be in this episode's description. Do not hesitate to click on that and join in on that. It's totally free, nothing to you, and you get to have fun talking to me at any time of the day. I also like to just thank everybody who's liked the page so far. Welcome to my wonderful fold of followers. You guys are absolutely amazing. I absolutely love it when you guys talk to me about these topics because they're a lot of fun to talk about, and you guys really do provide a lot of information that I'm able to get out to a lot of newcomers, especially if they just don't know anything. There's so much that we have to cover in gloving that, with your guys' help, it's helping me convey what is needed to be said, or at least allowing that to open the doors of possibilities to the newcomers, So definitely want to thank everybody who's been listening. You guys know how to hit me up, and you can hit me up at any time. I'm always available. Don't hesitate, just talk to me in private. It's totally fine. I've had plenty of conversations with a lot of people over the past couple weeks, and it's just been great. And I really, really hope that continues. So, but yes, I believe that is pretty much everything from my episode. I really do hope you guys enjoyed it. I really do love you guys because you guys are amazing. But I am your host, Peter, aka LPD8 Dubuque, and I'll see you guys all next week.